Hey, Armando.
Hey, hello everybody. No, everybody, nobody here. We're going to the galaxy. Good. Oh, it's only you and me.
Yeah, it's just the two of us.
Oh my goodness.
So, so I'm playing a little bit of the images that just got in from James Webb.
Mm-hmm.
Fascinating stuff.
That look like a tornado. They looking like a hurricane. You looking from the space?
Yeah, it's a double spiral galaxy that
Oh,
it was photographing. And
uh-huh.
these, like I said, it's just the first. They got like the first 8 to 10 kind of full resolution images back from James Webb,
Uh-huh.
just like yesterday.
Yeah. Miss Bernice is here.
Yep.
Yep, I am here.
Hey, Bernice, how you doing, dear?
Great, great, great.
Good. Yeah.
So what is it that we are looking at?
We're looking at the first images that came back from the James Webb telescope.
Oh, okay.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
somebody, I think it was probably Bob, who mentioned that he's been kind of following, the whole development of James Webb.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody's been waiting to get like the first images back from that telescope, and they just started coming in yesterday.
Now, who is James Webb?
Well, I don't know who James Webb specifically was, but the telescope is named, after him. Okay.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, but what we're talking about is this. What is it? Not 10 million, but $10 billion telescope that got launched maybe about 5 or 6 months ago. That is out in outer space right now, about 1,000,000 miles. An orbit of about 1,000,000 miles away from planet Earth, so that the light from the planet and the moon doesn't interfere with it. So it's not an optical telescope. It's an infrared, so you can actually see through like a lot of the nebulae and dust clouds to actually see what's out there. So anyway, I thought this might be a good way to open up the class.
So is this from the internet or this what Bob sent in?
No, this is actually a download from YouTube.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. So if you go in and you do a search for the James Webb telescope, yeah, this one is, I think, the first 8 images. Yeah. And they haven't gotten a lot back because it takes a long time to process these images because there's so much information.
Who went up there and doing this?
Well, nobody went up there. It's the telescope that's up there, but it's...
I know it.
Yeah. In fact, that's kind of a
problem.
problem.
He was in the government.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of a problem, though, is you see, if things were not working on this telescope, it's literally 1,000,000 miles away from the surface of the planet. They couldn't send a crew up from NASA or anywhere else to fix it. It's too far away.
And it's a lot of radiation there, probably.
Yeah. There's tons of radiation out there. Because you see, it's further away than the moon. It sits outside the orbit of the moon.
Oh, it's way back behind the moon. Oh.
Well, not behind, but yeah, outside of it. Yeah.
Outside. So when Bob went over there to the space to study this thing, Bob been to the space?
What about space?
No, Bob, he had been to space studying all this thing.
No.
No? Oh.
Well, kind of the purpose of Webb was it being so far out from the Earth's and the moon's orbit is that there's no interference, as far as light or radiation. And so it's, you know, going to give us much clearer images, you know, of the universe. Plus, it being a infrared telescope rather than an optical, it can actually see much further back, you know, toward when the Big Bang actually happened. It can't go quite that far back, but it can go fairly far back. But there's one of those double spiral galaxies that are, you know, kind of colliding. And yeah, those are fascinating. So
Yeah.
anyway. But I thought this might be a good way to kind of begin the class, you know, not officially, but, you know.
But spiraling out of control?
Yeah, we could say that, couldn't we?
Yeah, we could.
Yeah, it's yeah. I'm wearing my earphones today, by the way. And the reason I'm wearing my earphones is that when I've done that in the past, are you guys hearing the sound of this better?
No,
Yeah, a little.
A little.
I don't hear no sound.
I hear some background noise.
No, I don't hear anything.
No, we're going to talk about reptiles. Okay, good. Okay. Anyway, that was it. That was all of James Webb. You know, but I thought that was an interesting video.
Good.
So,
I thought that any of us was planning to go to space. So, well, I don't
You
have
mean-
in mind.
you mean anybody in the group?
Yes, maybe you or Bob. I don't know.
You know, actually, I'll be honest with you. If I had the opportunity to go, you know, into outer space, I really couldn't personally find any particular reason why I would want to do that. You know, that's just me. You know, I mean, you know, I'm fascinated and interested, you know, in what's out there. Do I want to go out there myself? At this point in my life, not particularly. You know, now they will tell you, okay, if you were to get on, let's say that you got launched into outer space and then you got on some kind of spacecraft that could move at the speed of light, you know, then what would happen is that you would actually, you know, start like you'd stop aging. You know, and in fact, you know,
Hey, that might be a good thing.
right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if they sent you out, you know, in outer space and then you came back, you know, and you're traveling at the speed of, I think you have to travel at the speed of light. You would actually, by the time you got back, you know, you may only have perceived that you were only gone maybe a couple of months. But the fact is that by the time you returned, you know, it might be a couple of 100 years in time that, you know, when you got back. So everybody that you knew when you left the planet would no longer be here, which is a weird thing. But
Yeah, that's I understand that you go in space and then look like you don't get older. Like when you come back here, everybody's older than you. So I don't understand. I don't understand that, but I don't want to ask. I
you
don't
don't
know.
want to ask. Yeah, it's kind of, yeah, you're off deep into, you know, physics at that point. And this idea that space and time are in fact actually the same thing. So, you know, which I'm still trying to wrap my head around. So, but it's you know, it's an interesting, you know, I guess an interesting phenomena or an interesting conversation, you know, about our perception of reality, and sort of how we grow up thinking the world around us is a thing, and then there's always new ideas challenging what that is. So, all right, so we got like 5 of us now. There's Veronica. Hey, Veronica.
I heard Miss Wanda voice, I think.
Yeah, I don't see Wanda up there. Yeah, there's only 5 of us. There's you, there's Bernice, Bob, and Veronica, and me.
Oh, so what's Veronica?
I'm here. Hello.
Yeah, now she's
Hi,
talking to us.
Veronica.
How you doing, dear?
I'm good. How are you?
Okay. Yeah. I opened up the class a little bit differently today. I was in the middle of playing a video on the images of James Webb and the James Webb telescope.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Have you followed that any?
No, I didn't see that.
Yeah.
I didn't get here in time.
Yeah, it's they're getting some beautiful pictures back. Makes you really kind of think about how big and how weird and wonderful the universe really is. So, anyway.
I think
Bob's,
we need that right now.
yes, we do. I think. Yeah. Bob's been following it, right?
I have definitely been following it. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you heard anything new about it?
No, they're saying it's going to be a couple of months before they get any real good images from it, until they get all the mirrors suggested on it.
Yeah, that's what I thought. And then they started playing these videos about the first 8 or 10 images. And are those really from Webb, or are those Hubble?
No, they're not from him. No. They've only taken 2 or 3 pictures that have been published to the general public.
Yeah. That's what I thought.
Basically, the mirrors got a long way to go. I mean, they adjust those microscopically.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that was my understanding, that it wasn't going to be for like another 3 or 4 months before you really got your first clear pictures from it.
It's going to be fascinating when the web starts to work and it's getting its long range pictures, and they still say, we ain't at the edge yet. We got a long way to go before we get to the edge of the universe, if there is such a thing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I was listening to, it was a woman who worked on the web, on the project. And she was saying, well, the web will see further than we've ever been able to see before. And they were talking about the, it's called the Doppler shift, the red shift. Because that's kind of like the end of what we can see visibly, right? And Webb will be able to see back past that. But even at that, they're saying it won't go all the way back to the Big Bang. It'll stop short of that. So,
which the Big Bang is still a theory.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it is a theory, but yeah, evidence is kind of piling up, in its favor. So we'll see. We have a lot to learn yet. So Eloise is here as well. Yay! Hey, Eloise.
Hello, everyone.
How you doing?
Hello.
I'm getting on. Hello.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we're sitting here talking about the James Webb telescope, and how that all the wonderful things that we're hoping for from that. Are you familiar with the James Webb telescope?
No, I'm not.
You're not? Okay. Well, it's just a brief scenario. What was it, around about, it was about 6 months ago, right, that they launched it?
No, they launched it Christmas Day.
Oh, Christmas Day. Yeah,
Christmas Day,
2021.
Yeah.
Yes. Anyway, it's starting its orbit, and it's literally about 1 million miles outside of the Earth orbit. So it's fairly far away from us.
So the telescope is not here on Earth, it's in the space.
Yes. Yeah, about 1 million miles out in space.
Oh,
Now,
that's good.
yeah.
That's how far.
Well, not relatively, no. You know, relatively, no. Yeah, but it does get it outside the orbit of the moon. So see, the moon orbits inside that. So there's no light or interference, you know, with the images that it's going to be able to send back to us. So, you know, it's fun and interesting stuff. You know, and it's better to talk about than, you know, other stuff going on in the world right now. So, anyway. So we got, you know, a couple of us, you know, sent in some stuff. For some reason, I can't move stuff today. I don't know why. No, it's not going to let me take it any higher than that. Okay. So we got some images that people sent in. We're going to look at them, and we're going to talk about, you know, some of the stuff we've been doing. Now, Eloise, somehow you have a red and green square over your face.
I know. That's a painting I did. I put it on here as a background some time ago, but now I want it off and I can't seem to get rid of it.
Yeah, and it seems to be in front of your face rather than behind you.
Well, actually, that's funny because
Now
I'm
it's
looking.
gone.
Because I'm looking at Eloise's face.
Right, yeah. When she started talking, it went away. Before that, it was sitting right there over her.
I'm going to try to switch devices anyway. I'm having some technical problems here.
Oh, okay. Are you? Okay. Is one of them hearing me or something like that?
No, I can see you okay. It's just that I can't seem to get on, and then I can't. One of them may lose the picture for me, and I might not be able to see, but I can hear. Anyway.
Oh, okay. All right.
One of those things.
Okay. Well, we're going to jump on in. You know, we've got a few of us here now. And so we're going to get rocking and rolling. Wake up, Armando, because we're going to talk badly about you first.
Okay.
You're first up.
Let's
Okay?
face it.
Yep. Armando gets to face the music. You know, we get to look at the orchids that he did. Okay.
Nice.
Yeah. How about that? See?
Yeah.
Now, Armando, what did you do these with?
With a color pencil.
Okay. So you're using color pencil, and it's just on like in a sketchbook or something on like bond paper.
Yeah, then the normal sketch paper. Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
But because I wanted to put it on my Canva, I don't know if to put it on white like this one, or put it a dark background like you recommended sometime.
Well, here's the thing. You notice that right now it's on white paper.
Yes.
Okay. And can you see the yellow and stuff really clearly?
Well, the light yellow, no.
Well, actually you can. You know, it stands away from the background, right? You're not losing it. So the simple answer is, yeah, if you make the density of the yellow, you know, dark enough, and you know, there's enough contrast between the white background, you'll be able to see it perfectly fine.
So that means instead of yellow, you use orange.
Well, yeah, to make the yellow slightly darker, you might have to use, you know, maybe a slightly, you know, a mixture of maybe yellow and orange, or yellow and green, right? Or yellow and, if you have a brown, like a burnt sienna, raw umber, or something like that, you know, you might take it to darken, you know, and make some darker values of yellow, or to mute it. You know, there's lots of ways that you can modify yellow, still keep it yellow, but, you know, bring down the value or bring down the intensity. You know, the more extreme way is to take violet and mix with the yellow, and that's going to gray it down the fastest, you know, and darken it, because that's a direct, that's a direct complement, right? And so it's not a 50-50 mix, okay? You know, violet being a much darker and much stronger color as far as tinting strength. You know, it takes a lot less violet to make yellow go gray, you know, than a 50-50 mix. It may be like 10% violet and 90% yellow to make it go gray.
What about the background?
Well, that's what I'm talking about. You know, if you're able to modify your colors, you know, and we're talking about specifically yellows, and make them darker or grayer, or, you know, and give yourself more contrast between the background and the flowers themselves, you know, you don't really need to put a color back there. You could keep it like a vignette and white. Now, if you decided to put a dark color back there, what's going to happen is that the contrast with the yellow is going to increase, right? It's going to make it much stronger. But then you're going to lose the contrast with all your stems.
Yeah, in the branch, yes.
Yeah, those are going to fade back into the background, and the flowers are going to pop forward. Okay. So that would be the difference in having, you know, a dark background, lighter flowers on top of it, versus your you know, flowers, which still are fairly light, but they're much darker in value than white. So
what about a light brown or a light blue?
Wow.
Or a light green, very light.
Yeah, well,
In the background.
Right. You see, if you make a light background, then you're probably going to get really close in value to the yellow flowers themselves, and so they're not going to pop forward as much, because you're not going to have the contrast, because the values are going to be maybe too similar. See, so if you're looking for the most contrast, that's not the way to get it. You know, either go really dark or go really light. You know, like white is as light as you can get, right? Yeah. But if you want to begin to soften that contrast down, then just, you know, start, you know, darkening the value of the background slightly, and it will soften it, and it won't be, you know, as strong.
All right. Thank
So
you.
you've got lots of options there. But if, again, you know, if you're going for the most contrast, probably what you've got right now is about as strong as you can get, because you have a nice strong dark here in the stems, and you've got a light, but it's not as light as the background. So again, it's still standing full. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Now, would you, if you decided to put this on canvas, would you be using acrylic or oil, or what?
I'm using now acrylic because it's easier to clean.
Okay.
It's water basic, so it's easier.
Okay. So here's an idea, okay, for you, and this will help you. This will help answer your question. Okay. And it's a very simple experiment that you can, or an exercise that you can do to help you make up your mind of which way you want to go with it. Take one of your sheets of paper here and use white acrylic and paint like a rectangle or a square of white acrylic on your paper. And then in another square on the same page, you know, paint it black or some very, very dark color, right? And then let those dry, and then come back in and start not painting flowers, but just, you know, little circles, you know, little dots, but, you know, I mean, make them like the size of a quarter, right? And mix up different mixtures, or try to match the color that you see in the flowers, mix those up and put them on both, you know, and take a look at them, you know. So mix up a red, mix up kind of an orangey yellow and a yellow, and, you know, if you see more muted yellows or something like that. Try to mix, make a mixture for that and put them on those backgrounds. And the same for, some of the color of the stems, because some of them were kind of greenish, some of them were kind of brown. And again, put those colors on those backgrounds and see which ones you get the most contrast.
I see.
Okay. And then you'll know where to go. And if you want to try things in between, you could do 4 or 5 different backgrounds and mix them and, make a little square on there and then put those, color patches on top so that you could make a visual, estimation of what that would really look like in the final. You might like, a more neutral kind of soft background that's closer to the yellow, or you may not. It depends on the mood that you want to set in the painting. Okay.
Thank you. Okay.
I know I'm playing devil's advocate. There's lots of choices that you could make there. Okay. And then we have your figure drawing. Okay. And Armando, I'm happy to say that your figure drawing is getting better. Little by little, you are improving. Okay. I mean, that looks like, a female figure. It looks like the figure we were drawing from. Okay. You can tell what the source is. And the variety of line work that you're using, is nice. You've got a little contrast in there. You've got some softer lines, a few darker, more prominent lines that sort of pick up the movement of the form. And okay, so that's getting better. Anybody else? Anybody got any other comments before we move on from Armando? Silence. I take that as a no. Okay.
Yes.
All right, moving on. So now we have Bernice. Bernice, talk to us.
I know one thing is almost too light to see, isn't it?
It is. But I'm going to blow it up, and you can see it. And this is your orchid, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And now, is this drawn out on canvas, or is this on paper?
No, it's just what's that paper called?
Like bond paper, like a sketchbook.
Not quite bond. The one that you in tablet. I guess mixed media, something like that.
Oh, mixed media paper. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because from here you went to here, and you know.
Oh, now on that one, I said let me just try and paint it. And what happened with that one, I realized that being on the table, that I actually was leaning the flower to the right.
Mm-hmm.
So I stopped. I said, well, let me actually show y'all that
Yeah.
I finally recognized that when I'm on the table, it gives me an odd angle. That I gotta learn. I haven't done it yet. I gotta learn to paint on the canvas.
Yeah, on an easel where it's vertical.
Exactly. I have an easel. I just haven't tried doing it. I gotta do, because when I do that, I do see that I either flatten things out or they get an odd angle, because that was my only reason for sending that in, really.
Okay. Well, you would not be the only one who gets that same result by laying stuff flat on the table. We've all done that, and then went, well, that looked really good until I picked it up, and now I'm looking at it, it looks kind of wonky.
There's something strange about it.
Yeah.
But that's very small. That's about 5 by 7 probably.
Okay. Yeah, but still, it's kind of what I was talking about with Armando. It's like just a little study, and you've got your color on there, and so you can actually see, how much contrast you're going to get out of, between the yellow of the petals of the flower and a dark background. And so, as you can see, you're going to get a lot of contrast. Right, Armando?
Uh-oh, he left already.
He did.
I'm here. I'm coming back.
Yeah,
Okay.
he went and got a sandwich or something. I don't know.
Hey, that's not fair. I want sandwich.
Yeah? Are you going to fix everybody's sandwiches, Armando?
No, this is popcorn.
Popcorn, okay. But what I was saying is, okay, you were asking about how much contrast you get, right? Well, here's a good example. Okay, so that's that yellow flower on a dark background. Would you say that that's a lot of contrast?
Yeah, it's a lot of contrast. Yeah.
That is. It's a lot of contrast, right? So, that might give you an idea. Yeah, and like I said, for anybody out there, if you want to know, let's say you have an idea that you want to paint something and you're not sure what the background should be, mix up, a few colors and try it. Put it down on, like a scrap piece of canvas or in a sketch pad or something like that, and then mix some of those colors, put them on top of it, and then look at the degree of contrast you get in value and intensity, on those different backgrounds. And again, that will give you a little more informed decision about which way to go. Okay. Hey, Benet, how are you doing? Okay, he's waving at us. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is this oil that you use, Bernice?
No, that's acrylic.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I like the contrast. The way
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
what I did was I painted it black initially, and then I kind of washed it with some green.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, because you pick up in the lighter areas.
I just want to say hi to everybody.
Okay. Hi, Benet. You doing okay today? Okay. Yeah, we're going to see you tomorrow. Are you going to be there at the Benson Center?
Yes, I'll be there.
Okay. Well, I will see you in the morning. I should be there early. Okay.
Good evening.
Okay. Anyway, in the lighter areas, you can actually see where she's got some kind of a green wash or something over here.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought the black was too stark.
Mm-hmm.
So let me put a little something to beat it back a little bit, And with acrylic, it dries so fast that you can do that,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. There's and I think we've watched a video on this before. It's called negative painting.
Okay.
And it's where a lot of times, you'll start with your image where your focal point is going to be, and you kind of work outward. And so you start getting your color and forms and shapes, and you really develop your image. And really the background is the last thing that you paint. So you're really using the background colors to sort of cut around and define the edges of your final image. And that's a real common, practice, like in alla prima painting in particular. You would kind of approach it that way. You might have a wash or a tone or something over your whole canvas, and then start developing your focal points. And then as you develop those, toward the end, you'll actually start, whatever your final background color is, start mixing that and cutting around it, and put in really the background, last. And it's real similar to like plein air painting. A lot of times when you're painting in the studio, a lot of people think, okay, I'm going to paint my sky first. And see, in plein air painting, it's just the opposite. You put in your land masses and darks and things. And the very last thing you do is you put in your sky, because you're using your sky to define like the shapes of tree lines and, and trees that are closer to where the light is coming through. So you're putting those lights on top of those dark shapes. So, you could do something very similar with this, and, and get nice clean edges, to define your shapes when you do that.
Okay.
And then you sent this in, and this is a bit, all right, what is this about?
That, believe it or not, that's the album Stevie won the song from the Tree of Life.
Mm-hmm.
It's it's if you look at the top, right in the kind of semicircle, you see songs.
Mm-hmm.
And right underneath it says in, and where's the? Oh Lord, now I
Songs
can't see.
in, yeah, I see life.
I see the life, yeah.
Yeah. Oh.
And key is to the left.
All right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
key. Songs in the key of life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So songs in the key of life. Okay.
Yeah.
And
All
I
right.
liked it. I said, let me try playing with that. So,
Okay.
so the no, I didn't do that. Somebody named Christian Blackheart did that.
Well, Christian Blackheart, I think, is the artist who did the music for this. This is
okay.
This is an album cover, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And
Come here.
so is it the style, that you're interested in, or?
No, it's really, well, I like it that the song kind of meshes in with the painting or the drawing and all that. There's a person, with the basketball, another person had his hand inside the S of the song. And I think it's the way the colors are meshed in, and you have to really think about it to see song in the tree of life, in the key of life.
In the key of life, yes.
Yeah, and I really like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I like the color, and also that it's kind of, and it just kind of melts into the background. It looks like color until you look at it.
Yeah. Yeah. When I saw this, I was kind of wondering about it because actually it was back, I want to say it was in the 70s or the 80s that Stevie Wonder did an album by the same title.
That is Stevie Wonder's album.
Oh, it is?
Uh-huh.
Oh, okay. All right. So where did Christian Blackheart come in? I wonder.
I don't know. I just clicked on Song in the Tree. Well, actually, I was in the Black History celebration at Darnell today, and they ended with Stevie Wonder Songs in the Key of Life, and so I clicked on it, and that's one of the things that came up.
Okay. Huh. Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure, but yeah, I'm familiar with the Stevie Wonder song.
That's it.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not familiar with what the album cover artwork looked like, but
I think he's somebody. I think the album cover really looks kind of like a flower. I thought that's not exciting. So I found this. I like that a lot better.
Yeah. Well, as you were saying, it's like the more you look at this, I mean, you begin to pick out. At first you really don't see all the words and everything else. It's a lot of color and stuff. But little by little, you, like you said, you see the basketball player. You see it looks like a little tape from a not an 8-track, but just a little cassette tape. And then and there's a microphone, and you get the number 75 on one side,
and that the plug in, there's an electrical plug in and all that.
Right, and then you see the little. This looks like, one of those openings, on each side of a violin.
Oh yeah.
Where
the bottom looks like it's a neighborhood back there.
Right. Yeah, almost like a cityscape or something.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot of different elements in there, kind of mixed up. And then up here, you kind of get. Let's see my cursor if it will move. Yeah, kind of like bars.
Yeah, the music symbols,
and musical notes, coming.
Yeah, on the other side too. Yeah. And
so,
I don't know what the 75 and 86 mean yet.
I'm not sure either. Yeah. Yeah, and we, I mean, there's other numbers in there, like it looks like the number. This could either be 6 or 6D, and then there's a 4 and a 2 and an 8. So yeah, there's a. It's like the more you look at it, the more stuff you can pick out.
Love it, actually.
So you like the color and sort of the energy and stuff of this?
Yes.
What would you do with it? I mean, what would you use this for? Would you, anything in mind?
I'd probably put it someplace where I feel I need some energy, like maybe I in exercise, or get a place where I exercise and play music, I'll probably put it in some place like that. You know.
Yeah, but I'm saying if you wanted to try to emulate this particular style and all the color and stuff, the movement in it,
Oh, okay.
what kind of subject would you paint? Would you paint flowers? Would you paint a landscape? Would you paint people? I mean, how would you use it?
Oh, I was just gonna paint that.
Oh, you're just going to try to, basically copy this. Okay.
Right.
Yeah. Well, here I have a weird, crazy idea for you.
Okay, I'll take it.
All right. Why don't you do, like, why don't you take one of your small canvases, right? Like that 5x7 flower,
Okay.
right? And why don't you try to do an orchid, kind of like this?
Okay. I'm writing it down right now. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And just try one and try it sort of in this style where the color is kind of broken up, and you don't have to make the orchid any particular color. You can make it all kinds of colors.
Right.
So you just use sort of the shapes and the design of it, and then use color kind of layered the way that you see it here against the dark background. And see what you can come up with.
Okie dokie.
Yeah, I mean, to play. That's the idea.
Yeah, because I really like the way they did that. And I'm trying to figure out if I do the orchid, how can I put some words, symbols, or letters in there too?
Yeah, well, you could. I mean, you can combine all kinds of things. It doesn't just have to be a flower floating out there in the middle of a dark space.
Right.
It could be all kinds of things around it. It could be other flowers. It could be, like a bee, flying around, or a butterfly or something like that. I mean, you can come up with all kinds of ideas, right? And make it really kind of a fun piece. It's, your own.
I got the idea in my head. I'm gonna try to, right after class.
Okay. All right. So then,
now you need to turn that one to the left a little bit.
I do.
Yeah, because that's what I was doing. I was trying to put something on canvas and show what I did so far in the song in the tree of life, in the key of life.
Okay. All right. So yeah, you're just basically trying to, more or less copy this. Okay.
Right.
And that's your beginning. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that I said, let me put, and I sent it to you because I was saying, if I were going to copy that, did I start right, or do I need to make more blocks of color, if I'm going to do that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you've got a good start. You're looking for your big underlying shapes, right? And then you can work over those. And
right.
And
I just want to get something down. And I can, being as it is acrylic, I can correct the colors and all that, correct the shapes and all that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You can always see, that's the great thing about acrylic is it's going to dry so quickly. You can always go back and work over it, and modify things and refine things as much as you want. Okay?
But see, I've noticed that when you do things, you don't really try to copy the shape so much as you do a block. You do a block of color here and a block of color there. So on this, should I have did blocks of where a color fall?
You could. I mean, there's lots of different ways of approaching it. Like if I'm going to go back to the original image. Okay. So what I would do, if I were trying to do something like this, is I would look and say, okay, what's my more dominant color there? Okay, where do I see, what do I see? I see a lot of blue, right? Blue seems to jump out at me here.
Okay.
Now there's a lot of green and yellow and stuff, but the blue seems to be, for me, the thing that I see the most, right?
Okay.
And so, I might take a big brush, and if I see a lot of blue in one particular area or the other, I might just put a patch of blue down there. And like you said, I wouldn't necessarily try to copy the shape. I just kind of put it where I think I saw it, and then I would go to my next color. So the next color might be red, right? And so I'd mix up a red, and I'd start putting red wherever I thought I saw it. Okay.
Okay.
And then green and then yellow. And, eventually, things kind of begin to develop and fall together, so that you begin to see them, and they start making, sense, some kind of shape or some kind of form that you can recognize. So, and then probably the last thing I'd put on there is like, a light yellow or a white, because they're almost the same, and then that would put that would really kind of begin to define some of the pictures and the shape systems and the letter forms. So there's lots of ways you can approach it. There's no wrong way of doing it. Okay. And if you see letters and stuff like that, there's nothing wrong with, writing in the letters. If you see colors, there's nothing wrong with just putting colors where you see them, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can work either way. Different people's brains work differently in the way that we perceive, colors and shapes and, patterns and objects. It's really kind of individual, and, you just kind of go with what works for you. Okay.
You're right. Okay.
Yeah. And experiment, I mean, try it with color blocks one time, or try, copying the shapes one time. See which one seems to feel more natural to you. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Because I'm putting them on very small canvas anyway. So so when I get ready to do the final one, I can pick up which one works better for me.
Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it's like the more that you kind of play around and you experiment with stuff like that, you're going to find that you begin to develop particular habits that feel comfortable to you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And eventually, you get to the point where, okay, that's kind of the way you work.
Right.
Yeah. And like I said, if you had 100 different artists out there and you asked them how they did something, you would come up with 100 different approaches. You would, because everybody's a little different. What works for me isn't necessarily going to work as well for you. And
right.
Yeah, I might say some things or show you some things that, you might be able to borrow, and kind of incorporate into the way that you develop your art pieces. And a lot of the stuff that works for me may not work for you, and that's nothing unusual about that. Anybody who's ever worked with anybody, as an instructor or a teacher, you try to do it the way that they show you at first, but eventually, you're going to get other influences and stuff that feel more natural to you. And what you end up with is your working process is kind of kind of this evolved process, where you've had influences from all these different people, but it feels natural to you. And that takes time to develop, and it also takes a lot of practice. The more you work, the more you're going to find, what feels good to you, and where you get the best results. Okay.
Okay.
All right. And then you sent this in. I'm going to skip the image that you're working on and go to the source of inspiration. Okay. Yeah. Now this is kind of interesting because this is, if I had to guess, just looking at it, it looks like an image from like the Byzantine art period.
It is.
Okay.
I just like the clothing.
Yeah.
Let me play with those. You know how you say play with painting? And I played with painting and played with some gemstones and everything. I was just having a great time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, interestingly enough, do you have any idea who these people are?
Yeah. Who this king and queen is?
Yeah.
Armando just told me.
Well, yes, it is a king and a queen. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it would be from the Byzantine Eastern Empire, right?
Mm-hmm. I like it.
Yeah. So now we call it Istanbul.
Nice.
It was Constantinople, and
Okay.
yeah. And I don't, if you look at the history of that area and that city, at first it started, off as sort of a realm of Christianity, and then and then the Ottomans conquered it, right? And they were Arab, right? And so this would have been from probably the Ottoman era, when you look at it. And
what year do you think this was?
I think that would have been around the 12th and 13th century, right before the beginning of the Renaissance.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it would have been pre-Renaissance. And that's when the Roman Empire was divided between the Western and the Eastern empires, right?
Okay.
The Western Empire, Rome itself, had been overrun with Germanic and different tribes, and had basically fallen. And the only part of the quote unquote Holy Roman Catholic Church was surviving in Constantinople at the time.
I heard a comment about that the Holy Roman Empire was neither holy nor Roman.
Yeah, that's a whole nother discussion. Okay. Yeah. And I would kind of concur with that, And then if you look at the result of that, in the Renaissance and how as the Catholic and Holy Roman Church moved back, into Rome, and all the things that went on during the Renaissance, there's some stories. Anyway, but it's interesting that you picked, this piece of artwork,
Mm-hmm.
And I guess my question is, what are you thinking? I mean, why would you pick this? And you said you like.
Well, actually, I was in Kermit's class,
Mm-hmm.
and he was showing a video. I
Mm-hmm.
thought, well, let me take a picture of that because I like the clothing on that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, interestingly, if you look at the costumes, right, where, if you look at the the crown on this man,
Mm-hmm.
and then the actual clothing, it looks kind of Arab, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then the patterns and things like that, it's kind of a blend of the Christian and the Islamic cultures mixed together.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of really the history of Turkey, as a nation, and the Ottoman Empire, was kind of that. It was kind of a mixing ground of cultures, because both, in fact, in the Ottoman Empire, they had all kinds of religions, including there were a lot of Jewish people there, a lot of Christians, a lot of Muslims, and everything in between. So. And that's also the period of time, if you think about it, the Ottoman Empire was sort of the key, place for trading and bringing things all the way from China and Japan into Europe. That's what the Silk Road was all about. And so there was a lot of, activity back then. People weren't necessarily just sitting at home. There were a lot of people who traveled great distances and went to foreign countries and came back and were trading, and so there was a lot of different influences in the world at that point. So
I'd like to know, you said you like the fabric, so what do you think about the fabric? Are you planning on using those designs in something of yours, or what?
I actually have a picture. Hopefully he's going to show it in a few minutes that I had started painting.
Mm-hmm.
And you used the designs that were in their clothing?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, here's.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah, I see.
Yeah. Here's her painting. Yeah. Yeah. And I wanted to start with the source first. And so it looks like, if I may, be so adventurous to say, that Bernice got out her artistic license and she's using it. So she's taking. Yeah.
I took some old gym, the Dollar Tree gym sheets that you get.
Mm-hmm.
I threw some around her neck and threw some on her ears and put some on his hat.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
So
was having a great old time.
yeah, and that's great. See, and there's that's perfectly fine. I mean, it becomes a mixed media piece. It's not just a painting.
Right.
Yeah, and you can get some beautiful results with stuff like that.
Now the thing I did notice though, don't I have, if I compare her to him, don't I have her face too small?
Yeah, maybe a little bit.
Yeah, I need to make her face a little bigger, a little longer or something.
You could.
But her body is small too, so I
Yeah.
don't think it's that much out of proportion.
Yeah, I mean.
No, but she's thin, but she's not that much shorter than him. So her face should be almost as long, a little longer than what I'm showing.
Yeah, but if you go back to the original, okay, and you start looking at them, yeah, I mean, they're similar. Hers is a little shorter and a little broader than his. His is a little more elongated. But, people come in a lot of different sizes and shapes and forms. And
because I had a 9 by 12 canvas, I want their heads to be bigger, so I move them closer into each other.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, you could maybe come down and lengthen, her chin a little bit.
Right
here,
there,
and then just broaden it out a little bit here. And proportionally, I mean, you're not that far off. So, it's not like you got to make any big major changes to it. Yeah. I mean, I think you'd be okay, more or less, keeping it pretty close to what you got.
Okay.
Now, I noticed too that you're using some metallic paint back here as well.
Where? Oh yeah. That's a little of everything. Like first I painted gold, and I thought no, it blends into the figures too much. So then I put some antique copper on top of it to make the background not be the same color they are.
Right.
And I did want his outfit to be a different color than hers, but not that different. It came out. I might have to go back over again because I want it just to be a little different than hers.
Okay. Well, but what's wrong with what you got there? I mean, you're following pretty close to what this was. You've got that dark kind of reddish brown against a much more intense red. So you're still in the red family. And
but you see the gold on his arm and the gold on her arm. I got it very, very different. I want to make it a little bit closer. So I might mix some of the gold that's on her arm, the gold that's on his arm, so that it's a little bit closer.
Yeah.
Or you can let it.
Yeah, you could take some of this yellow gold right here and work, I mean, don't cover all this up, but just, use it and make some kind of texture or pattern over this and let some of this show through. And again, if it's the same gold, it's gonna relate to each other.
Right.
So, you don't need to, paint everything, the same gold as this. And actually looking at the two of them, and I'm kind of wondering whether it's an effective.
I like the gold that's in his hat. That's the gold I think I want to get to.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, well, it's a little bit deeper and darker than this. This is more reflective. So what I'm saying is you could take a little of this, and add in as like an accent to some of these areas. You could also take some of this, since they're two separate golds, and bring over into, her costume as well.
Okay.
Yeah. You don't have to be a purist, she's all yellow gold and he's antique gold. You can mix and match and kind of change it up a little bit.
But that was just my picture that I want to play with. So, so that's what I was playing with.
Okay, yeah. And that's, it's a great subject. And, I'd like to, now, obviously you're redoing it and, you're making some changes to it. All right.
Because I couldn't see it all, like around his neck. it's kind of bled out. So I could assume that how around his neck would look. You know?
Yeah, you're saying here in the original? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing is, you know, do you need to stay exactly with what's there? Absolutely not. No. You know, I mean, you've kind of used this as a basic source. Okay.
Right.
Now from here, you know, when you get over here, you don't have to follow that exact same design. You can come up with your own designs. You know, same basic ideas, right? But you know, go play with it and have fun with it. It doesn't have to be anything more than what you want it to be. See, you can make it any way you want. Because your goal isn't really to copy, you know, that reference exactly. It was just something, you know, just something to get you going.
Right.
And now it's a question of where do you want to take it? You know, what kind of changes do you want to make? You know, is there something specifically you want to say, you know, here? Like, for example, in the original piece, there's a lot of writing.
Yeah.
You know, and looks like some of it is in Arabic script and you know, literally in Arabic script, and then some of it is in like Roman script. You know, when you look at the letter forms and things up here. So you know, you could add an element of words in there if you wanted to. So you know, you got lots to work with there. So, and of course you've got all your, you know, your jewelry, you know, the little gemstones and stuff to play
the
with.
lopsided gemstone.
Yeah.
And the lopsided gemstone.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, as another element in there. Yeah. You know, you could also, you know, you've got a base color down there. You know, and I think it's Lady and Wanda who generally work with pieces of fabric and stuff like that. But if you had, if you had some kind of fabric or some kind of pattern, or, you know, you could use, you know, parts of that and, you know, incorporate it, you know, in the piece as well. So, I mean,
what about that? You see where the brown is on him?
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, yeah. I thought about it, because I do have some paper that looked almost like copper or something like that. I should put that on top of it.
Yeah, you could. Yeah. Yeah.
While I'm having fun, you know.
Right. Yeah. If you had some tracing paper or something like that, you know, just carefully trace off that shape, right? And that shape, and then lay it over your paper, and then with a knife or whatever, cut out that same shape so that it fits real nicely, and then, you know, and then use the acrylic paint to glue them down. So, you know, and
I have to think about what to do with her, until she won't be left out. Mix kind of fabric for her.
Yeah, you've got lots of opportunities, you know, where you could do different things with her, you know, and it doesn't have to be the same thing.
No.
So, you know, maybe you've got a piece of decorative paper or something like that you could, you know, use in some areas or whatever of her dress. Or maybe she doesn't have it. It doesn't have to be that. You know, maybe it could be, you know, in the background, you know, that you put some kind of paper or something. That doesn't mean that you have to cover all this up, you know, just little bits of it, you know, here or there, you know, to break up that shape and, you know, put something in the background. So, you know, there's.
This is a person. My line don't have to be straight, you know, like the little square. This is a person. A person. It wouldn't necessarily be straight line, would it? It's okay like it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, no, because it wouldn't really be a straight line anyway, would it?
No.
Because it's wrapped around a form, right? So all those lines, you know, in reality, if you were trying to do actual, like, realistic representational art, you know, yeah, it would have to move around the form of the figures. Now, back in the Byzantine period, you know, when they were doing these, they didn't worry about that quite so much, you know. But still, you know, they kind of followed, you know, there's a bit of a curve here.
Right.
So yeah, you know, you got a lot of leeway there. that you can do, lots of different things with. Okay.
Okay, dokie.
All right.
Thanks so much.
You're welcome. Thanks for sending that in. Then we got Bob. Now this is not Bob. Okay.
Oof,
It
oof.
looks like Bob to me.
It looks like Bob? No.
Thank
don't.
you.
Well, Bob looks happy if that's Bob. He looks like a pretty happy guy. Now this is scratch board, right?
This is scratch board. Yep.
Okay. And then you're adding in a little bit of color.
Just a bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the dog is totally white. I think
Mhm.
there's a reference photo, I think maybe that I sent along.
Yeah, you did. Yeah. I wanted to show this first. Here's his
You
reference.
did a wonderful job. Good job.
Mhm. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
You can sit there and scratch those little lines in bit by bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Takes a lot of patience and maybe a little insanity.
Well, that's true.
Yeah. Now, how big is this, Bob?
9 by
9 by 12? 8 by 10.
8 by 10, yeah. I varnished it this morning and really it pops out really, really good.
Okay. Well, definitely, yeah, you got your value of, bringing that out almost to white. And, yet you've left just enough of the original scratch board in there so that you still get, some gradations and, different values in there. So yeah, you handled that really nicely.
The photo is very flat. I mean, the dog is white.
Yeah.
Almost a pale horse, I guess you could call it.
Right.
So therefore, I kind of tried to round him out a little bit with some dark, trying to push the top of the head back a little bit,
yeah. I mean, you get some gray tones in there, in the photo, but a lot of it, like right at the top of the head, is pretty burnt out.
Right.
And yeah. So in your piece of art that you created, okay, the way you're laying and scratching into it is kind of that idea that we use with drawing, which is to follow the shape of the form. And so, you're doing that in a lot of places here. And so it gives you a direction of a plane or how it moves around the form. And that's good. That helps keep the eye moving, in the direction of that plane. So that's all working for you. Okay. Yeah, this is a nice piece.
Thank you.
Now, is this for someone or is this?
Yeah, well, I think I'm going to send it to my nephew. That's his dog.
It's his dog?
And,
Okay.
Yeah, so.
Oh, he's going to love it.
Yeah. Okay, good.
It's like you planted each hair.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of, if you had to add up the number of scratch marks in there, there's a lot. So how long did it take you to do this?
I'm sorry?
How long did it actually take you to do this?
Probably about 3 days.
Okay.
Working on and off.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It's beautiful. Even the ears, you can tell the folds in the ears and everything.
Mm-hmm. All right, and so
a little touch of color.
Yeah. So we're going from Bob's dog to this guy, and I know who this is. This is Ernest Varner.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
I told him he had his happy face on that day.
Yeah, that's about as happy as normally you see Ernest. Yeah, that's generally him in a good mood.
Now, who is that?
It's his name is Ernest Varner.
He's my other art teacher.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Now he's working at Kennesaw State, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Now, is this a recent picture of Ernest?
No, it's probably 4 or 5 years old, maybe. He was apparently he had done a piece of work for an art show, and he was standing next to the artwork when they took a picture of him. And so I just redirected to his face only.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Yeah, I was looking at it, and I guess the last time I saw Ernest, he had been eating well. kind of like
Yes.
I was.
Yeah. Well, he's a little more plump today than he was.
Right. Yeah, it's weird how that happens, you know.
Well, he had some severe heart problems, and I think this was not too long after that he
Okay.
he had his heart issues, so he had lost a bit of weight, and he's really conscious about that now.
Okay.
Is this pastel then?
No, this is a photograph.
That's a photograph.
Yeah, this is the photo of Ernest. And then here's the
That's
drawing.
the photo?
Yeah. So now this is the drawing that Bob is doing of Ernest. Okay. Yeah, I showed the reference first. And so now this is graphite?
Graphite, yeah.
Okay. All right. So in looking at the two of them, all right, I'm gonna put this one back to you. How could you make this better?
Oh, a lot of ways.
Looking at the reference. So what would you do differently? Now, you know, you've gotten this far with it. What would you do differently?
I'd probably work on the blending of the graphite. It still looks a little scratchy, and I mean this I did in about an hour and a half.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, I would just a lot of finished work on it, blending, kind of lightening the tones a little bit on the right side of the nose, so you can actually define the nose. It's not very well defined. You know, there's a lot of little things there that I could, you know, do to improve it a lot.
Okay.
The hair, if you right. So.
All right. Well, the reason I asked that, okay, is because when I look at this, and let's go back to the original. Okay. Now, in the original, you see like the side rails of his glasses, right?
Correct.
Pretty prominently. You really don't see the lenses that prominently. Okay.
Correct.
They're almost not there. Okay. And in some places they're not. Okay. They literally just kind of fall into the background. You lose them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing I want to point out is that all of the clothing, you know, around his neck and everything, there really isn't any straight lines. You know, they're all kind of curved, right? And in your drawing, you kind of flattened out, you know, some of those shapes and made them a little too straight and stuff.
Yep, sure did.
And yeah, and even if you did see it as almost a straight line, you know, knowing that it's moving around his neck, I would have kind of opted for, you know, curving it just a little bit, you know, following, you know, getting it to flow a little bit. You can use that artistic license. But what I wanted to talk about, you know, when I looked at this earlier, you know, and looking at the reference and stuff like that, when you're drawing people with glasses, glasses seem to be hard, you know, for people because a lot of times, you know, people will start drawing the glasses first and then trying to put the eyes, you know, where they see them in the lenses and stuff. And I would kind of suggest that you not do that, okay? That in fact, you know, you try to get, you know, accurate measurements between each side of the face, get the eyes positioned where you want them, and then work your glasses in around them, okay. To whatever you're seeing. The reason being, you see the difference in the shape of this lens versus this lens, and how much narrower and longer this looks, and how much shorter and taller this looks.
Okay.
In proportion. See, and you know, really, when you look at these, you know, you don't see that. You know, it sits well outside the eye, and the width of this is, you know, very similar to this. You know, and the heights are really the same. So think about that, you know, as you're constructing your drawing, you know, if you would approach this by finding those underlying structures and forms first and getting those measurements right, like the height and the width of his eye sockets, you know, particularly this one, you would find that it's really, the glasses really need to kind of sit about out here, right, in length. And then, the eye socket could be a little bit wider as well. But, I talk about this a lot, when we start drawing the human head. And if you're really going to get good at this stuff, you really have to forget about the actual features of the face. And you got to look at, the underlying structures and planes. And, once you get those planes and structures set up and they feel, correct as far as the proportions and dimensions of them, then you can start adding, actual features, right? Now in a drawing, and particularly like a tonal drawing, that's not really all that hard to do because, rather than drawing stuff like eyes and noses and stuff, you're putting in dark and light shapes at first, and then looking at the values and checking, the size relationships of things together. And I need to show you, it's almost like doing a plaster cast, that's been broken into planes. It's like each plane is going to have its own distinct value. And it's like once you get that effect in your drawing, you pretty much will have the structure of the head, and then you'll know exactly where to place the eyes and everything else around it. So maybe, I think maybe on Friday, I've got some examples of that to show you. Are you going to be here Friday?
Should be, Lord
Okay.
willing. Creek don't rise.
Okay. Yeah. Well, we may draw some plaster cast on Friday. Okay. And I've got two. I've got one with, the curved features and one with the flat planes. It's the same head. It's just one's broken down into flat shapes. The other is, almost like a facial cast. So, but think about that. Now, are you going to do anything more with this?
Probably not. No, that was just sitting watching TV,
Mm-hmm.
Doodling.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Well, I would kind of encourage you, I would leave this as it is, but then I would take this and, I would try to take the approach of, kind of breaking it down into those simple planes first, and building out, just the values, and see if you can get it to look like Ernest without putting the features on it.
Okay, well, we'll give that a shot.
Yeah. And if you get it to the point where it looks like Ernest without the eyes and the nose and the mouth on it, then you know that, oh, okay, I could keep going with this and I could actually put the features on it. So, but that, it's an exercise that we need to do, for everybody. It's a little, it gets you to thinking and seeing things a little bit differently. So we'll talk about that some more. And then here are your orchids, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so, you got them on the page, you're kind of, scale proportion wise and everything works, right? They're a little bit flat in the sense that, you could have maybe done something with enlarging some of these. I mean, these got a little bit smaller and they moved back, and then these to here. But you got orchids, okay? Would you do anything more with this? Would you think about ever trying to do a painting or, something more with it?
I've got a lot of stuff that I want to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you don't need any more.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Okay, I know how that works. Actually, I just posted something on Facebook about that. Yeah. I think that's one of my big I wouldn't say it's a downfall. It's just, it's one of the things that's constantly nagging me in life is that, you know, I already have this long established list of stuff that I need to get done. And unfortunately, I can't seem to wake up on any day of the week and not have different ideas about things that I want to do as well. There's all this new stuff. There's always new stuff coming up.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, I wish I could turn that off, so I could just get done with the stuff that I've already, you know, kind of.
Wait till you retire. It gets even more so.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you know, I was kind of hoping it would be just the opposite, John. Where,
yeah, that's what I thought.
yeah, well, like when I retire, that it's like, okay, now I have time to get all this stuff done.
Right.
Yeah. So now I know. Yeah. Yeah. Believe me, you know, if nothing else, working at the Benson Center has taught me that, you know, this myth that we go through in life, you know, when we're younger, like in our 30s and maybe 40s, of, oh, you know, it's like, I'm looking forward to retirement and, you know, I'll just be able to do whatever I want with my day. And, you know, I don't know any of you who get to do that. None of you, you know, because it's like life gets busy, you know, it's like you retire and all of a sudden, if you have kids and things like that, it's like, hey, they're not doing anything. They can watch the grandchildren, you know. I mean, and that's just a small example, you know. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff.
Oh, that's where I draw the line, though, Charles. I'm not watching anybody else's kid.
No?
No.
You said, been there, done that, raised mine.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
done.
right. No.
Okay. All right.
Way to go, Veronica.
If you can hold to that, that's good, Veronica. Okay. Yeah. I mean, you know, I live in Atlanta. My son lives in Chattanooga, so that gives me a buffer zone a little
You have
bit.
you have a distance there.
Yeah. You know, a 2-hour drive to get, you know, granddad to babysit is not always viable for them. So that's yeah. You know.
But even without watching the grandchildren, you know,
yeah.
we go to 4 or 5 classes a day. That takes up most of our day, so we're still very busy.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Oh, but Bernie, that's because we want to do that.
Well, I know, but I'm just saying, he was talking about when you retire, gonna have all this free time.
Mm-hmm. No.
Mm-mm.
Wow.
You want to go someplace at least twice a week. We have someplace we want to go. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well. All right. So I have one more piece of artwork to show you guys, and only one. And this is from Mr. John Giglio. Okay.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now, John, this does not look like watercolor to me.
I know it doesn't, but it is.
Oh, is it?
Wow.
It is
Okay.
watercolor.
Nice.
Wow.
Okay. Did you put it on like a piece of canvas paper or something? I mean,
Nope, my normal
watercolor paper.
watercolor paper.
Okay. All right.
I used very dry. The paint. I didn't use it real wet.
Okay.
So there was basically color on the brush and very little water.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. It looks a little. It kind of reminds me a little more like acrylic or gouache.
Yeah.
And it kind of has that look to it. Okay. Yeah. This is really nice. You know. I mean, really
Thank you.
nice. Yeah.
Thank you.
Done good.
Yeah. The only thing I would, you know, now are you finished with this?
Yep, that's it.
That's it. Okay. All right. Well, because what I was.
That's it. On to the next.
Okay. Yeah. Because what I was going to say to you is, I wouldn't touch the flower. And I wouldn't touch the background, but I would probably come back in here on where these stems are and hit them one more time with a passage of paint.
Right.
And get them to feel a little more solid, a little less textural. And as I did that, I might make some of these places a little bit lighter and then let them go to darker. And just, you know, kind of play with the value of them a little bit. But I mean, that's all I would do to this. Is just
that maybe I might do that.
yeah. I mean, I just kind of, you know, work in those little areas and just try to clean them up a little bit.
Yeah.
Other than that, you know, sign it, call it done. Now, how big is this?
9 by 12.
Okay, so that flower is a good, like 7 inches wide.
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah, it's big. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. How did it feel to be working, you know, in a space that big and, you know, kind of filling in those colors and things?
Well, you know, with watercolor, I always have a problem with trying to fill the background.
Mm-hmm.
What I did is I did the background and I had outlined the flower,
Mm-hmm.
and actually that whole space of the flower, I painted in a very light pink.
Mm-hmm.
So it was, then I did the yellows and highlights and others over the pink.
Yeah, so you were putting white, like China white or, you know, some
Right,
kind of
correct.
white over those other colors. Yeah.
Right, correct, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Which is why it looks a little bit like acrylic or gouache because
Right.
of those opaques in there.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah. And there's, you know, there's nothing wrong with any of that. You know, you can work either way. Okay.
But it was actually sort of fun.
Yeah.
Even though it was a flower.
Uh-huh. Well, yeah, because those shapes, you know, they're so large, you can kind of get in there with a brush and you can really play, you know, with the way you put the paint strokes down and stuff. And you captured it a little bit, you know, with the way you laid the paint strokes in there.
Right.
It actually gives it some form.
Mm-hmm.
It gives it some movement. So, yeah, you did a really nice job at that.
Oh, thanks.
So, all right. So that's it. That's all I got, you know. You know, what do you guys want to do from here? Yeah. Now, I could, let's see, you know, let's see. We've already looked at James Webb.
You know, Charles,
Yeah.
sometimes it might be interesting when we have a class project, instead of doing it by individual, doing it by the subject, like all the one figure that was done, see everybody's version of it, and then the next picture, see everybody's version of it, instead of going by individual, by the subject.
Mm-hmm.
Easy to compare and see what people did differently or how you see it.
Yeah. So, like, for example, if we took those orchids and everybody did orchids.
Right. And just showed the orchids, everybody's orchids rather than individual as they got to them.
Okay. Yeah, that's an idea. And I've thought about doing things like that. And the only reason that I haven't taken that approach so far is that, you know, not everybody likes to paint flowers. You know, for example.
Yeah. Well, if it's a class, if it's a Friday class thing and people submit them, just group the class project together by subject instead of when the individual turn gets up.
Oh, okay. All right. So like when we do Friday and we do a figure, put all the figures together and then put all the flowers together.
Right. That idea.
Okay. Yeah. Or whatever the. Yeah.
Just a different way of. Instead, because sometimes you go back to you show somebody, then you go forward, and then you go back to the other one to express a point, and I thought they were all just sort of in line. We could see the differences and
how everybody interpreted it. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm open to that idea. Okay. All right. Well, maybe we'll try that. You know, on next Tuesday. You know, when after Friday when we're doing some of the drawings. You know, maybe I'll do that. I'll group them by, you know, subject. So, okay. Thanks for that. Well, yeah, it's a good thought. You know, thank you for the suggestion. All right. Yeah, we'll play with that. There's an artist that I've been wanting to show you guys. Okay. And we have a little time if you guys want to hang around and look at him. He was, let's see, where are you at? I want to say he's on Thursday. Let's see. I'm trying to find him. Where did he go? Yeah, okay. Yeah, Walter J. Phillips. There you go. He was an artist, Canadian artist, actually. And he was part of, everybody hear the coyotes?
Yes.
Yeah, they're down the hill from me. They're back there
Wow.
by the creek. Yeah, I have a lot of wildlife here. And anytime that, you know, an ambulance, fire truck, something like that, you know, they all go off. You know, so they're joining in.
Yeah.
At any rate, okay, so let's take a look at him. Anyway, Walter J. Phillips is his name. Now, Phillips was kind of part of what we would call the arts and crafts movement. Now, the arts and crafts movement was, you know, a very big art movement in the U.S., but, you know, it actually originally started in Scotland, of all places, and then spread through England and into, you know, mainland Europe, like France, Germany, and things like that. You know, the end result of that arts and crafts movement were things such as the Impressionist art movement, Art Nouveau, the Secessionist, the Sugar Steel. You know, there's probably a good 40 or 50 art movements that all kind of fed off of what is generally categorized as the arts and crafts movement. And, you know, the whole idea behind arts and crafts was it was a rejection of industrialization. You know, people, you know, for a long time, you know, furniture and pottery and everything was made by hand, you know, human. You know, there was always a human touch to it. And then during the period of industrialization, particularly in England, you got these big factories and they started spitting out all this stuff. It was all the same and kind of generic, and everybody had it in their house. And so artists sort of began to rebel against that. And, you know, so you got people, you know, who were kind of key figures in both England and in France and in America, who kind of viewed this and said, okay, you know, we've had enough of sort of the factory produced stuff. You know, we kind of like the old stuff, and we're going to go back, you know, to starting to craft things. Well, Phillips himself was basically he did watercolors, he did some oil paintings, but mainly he was a printer. Okay, and so he would make hand colored prints. And this is just an example of you know, one of his prints. And you know, none of his stuff was like really large. They were fairly small in size, but really beautifully done. Now, if you could think about, you know, how many layers of color he had to put down on this, you know, and different plates that he had to make to actually create this image. You know, there's a lot of work involved in this. But, you know, he did, you know, some really beautiful work. Now, you know, there's one of his, you know, arts and crafts prints, you know, which are a little more simplified shapes, things like that. But, you know, did some beautiful, you know, beautiful work. Really nice use of color. But his design and his composition was the thing, in fact, that I really want you to look at. You know, how he designs the page. He looked at a lot of Japanese woodblock prints and things like that and borrowed from them heavily as far as the design. You know, a lot of these have, you know, a very kind of oriental feel to them. You know. But, you know, clearly, you know, American subject matter, or, you know, Canadian in this case. But, you know, just really beautifully designed stuff. Like this piece. You know, and he played with, you know, floral designs, trees, water, skies and clouds, things like that. Anybody have any particular reaction to this? Like it, don't like it, you know?
It's almost like they're almost like Oriental. Approach.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm sorry, John, you cut out. What?
I said they're like an Oriental approach. I was going to ask, are these all prints or any of this original?
Well, I mean, you know, they're all things he created.
Right, but prints, pictures of prints are pictures.
Yeah, they're original prints. Okay. I mean, he wasn't. He would do little sketches and studies, and then he would break them down into color plates and make series of artist prints from these.
Okay. So he didn't just do the painting and then
Right.
make. Okay, I understand.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah. His finished artwork was the prints.
Yeah. Wow,
Yeah.
that's pretty neat.
Yeah.
That's no easy task in my
No.
in my former life. I worked a little bit with printing and took a class, and we actually did some actual plates and typesetting and things of that nature.
Right. Yeah. And that's what I was pointing out is that if you think about this and you look at all the different colors, right? Like these yellows, the greens, you know, and you break this down, he's got six. Yeah, he's got at least six different colors, which means 6 different individual plates.
Right.
That had to be, you know, created, and they had to be printed in sequence so that one color would sit, you know, slightly over the other.
Right.
You know, and all line up, and it's what they call register. And so for each one of these, you know, yeah, these didn't happen instantaneously. I mean,
No way.
no, there was a lot of work in creating each and every one of these.
What did you say the process is called?
Well, he used a couple of different printing processes. One was Intelligo, and the other was woodblock. And he used both processes. And so, like in the woodblock prints, he was making, you know, he'd have like, you know, 5 or 6 blocks, and he would hand carve each of those blocks for each of those colors, and then put it in the press with the appropriate color ink on it and stamp it for each one of these.
What I'm familiar with the woodblock, but what did you say? Italio?
Intelligo.
Italigo. What is that?
It's a metal plate process. It's similar to etching. You know, and I'm not a printer, so I can't give you the fine detail on it. But there's a slight difference, you know, between something that's etched and I think Intelligo is where they'll take a material, it's a liquid, and they'll paint out the areas that they don't want the color to go into, right? And so they'll block that off, and then they'll put the plate in an acid and eat into it, so
like
that it
wax,
roughens.
really?
Well, yeah, it's kind of like a wax material or something that blocks the acid from affecting the plate, you know. But after they put it in the acid and etch it, then they'll clean off the wax, and then the plate will be ready to use, you know. And wherever the acid ate into was where the ink will stick to. You know, those slicker surfaces, it won't hold on to. And then, like I said, they'll, you know, put it on the press, and then they'll, you know, add color to it and start printing.
These
But
colors are all pale. Is that the special kind of ink that was used?
well,
Or is it just
well, yeah, I think a lot of it was kind of fashionable during that time to use those sort of lighter, you know, more pastel colors. You know, and it's kind of indicative of that particular period. You know, a lot of those colors were kind of soft and muted. You know, it wasn't one of those periods of art where they went for like really bold, bright colors in most cases. So everything was a little bit soft. You know, like this piece. You know, different kind of grays, blue grays, you know, obviously a warmer kind of brown. So, but again, you know, just kind of a, you know, a different way of approaching, you know, making images. And, you know, the thing I really like and admire about his work is, you know, he does things like trees, like this branch, right? Okay. But then look what he does with it. You know, it's kind of whimsical, you know, kind of how he curves shapes and things in there. He really kind of thinks about and designs everything very carefully. You know, it's very well thought out. So, and you know, does it look like a tree branch? Yeah. Okay. But there's something more to it. You know, it just gives it a little something different. So, but you know, it has that, you know, really kind of soft feel to it. Now I've got some of his paintings in here as well. Toward the end, you know, I've got some of his watercolors and things. Let's go down, see if we can kind of get, yeah, like this. Yeah, I think this is a watercolor of his. And so, you know, he would go out and he'd do these, you know, like plein air, you know, watercolors and things. And then, you know, sometimes he'd take those watercolors and turn them into, you know, actual prints. You know, like here's a print. You know, and we saw something very similar to this. And sometimes he would go back and do like second editions and change the colors slightly and maybe modify the plates slightly. So he would come out with different series. Like here's one of his watercolors. So that's definitely, you know, Pacific Northwest. That's a print. I think that's a watercolor. Okay. So you kind of get a sense of, you know, how he worked. Yeah. Now there's a watercolor. And in particular, you know, since John, you work in watercolor.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at how, you know, he laid in the background,
Right.
you know, and in some of it, you know, once he laid in the background, he started laying in some of the leaf shapes and things while it was still wet so that it would really soften them. Right. And they would kind of, you know, there wouldn't be a lot of hard edges on it. And then other places, you know, he kept it where the spaces were open, you know, or he had laid in these colors initially, you know, and worked around them, you know, with his background so that they would have a sharper edge on them.
Pretty neat.
Yeah. You know, he's got some really cool stuff.
Yes.
And, you know, a lot of people don't get to see much of his work, you know.
When was he around?
It would have been late 1800s, early 1900s.
Okay.
You know, through about like maybe 1920. Because that's kind of about when the arts and crafts movement, you know, sort of, you know, petered out in this country. Around 1920, 1930. Yeah, there's another one of his prints. Now you can tell his prints from his original like watercolors and stuff, because with all of his prints, you see he's got this little signature down here in the corner.
Yep.
You know, that's his mark for a printer. And then when you look at his actual watercolors, you know, he's actually signed it, you know, with his name. That's a print. So, but you know, he's a good person to look at, you know, particularly if you want to look at design. Yeah. Now, see, this is a watercolor. And if you look down in the lower right-hand
Yeah.
corner,
Yep.
you
Yeah.
can see his actual signature, right there, W.J. Phillips. Okay. But, you know, if you look at the way that he treated, you know, laying down his paint, you know, it was definitely working from these lighter washes toward the dark. And, you know, when you get to areas like, you know, this rocky shoreline, you know, you can see how he kind of layered the paint and went back in and, you know, laid water down to soften some of the edges and blur them, you know, because he wanted this to be here, but he didn't want this to stop you from moving back to here and this being, you know, a sharper edge out over that water and giving you more contrast, because that's really kind of the focal point of the whole painting, right, in this area. So, yeah, and then look at how he treated his sky and the clouds. You know, it's very faint, you know, there's just enough there to kind of break it up into shapes and get like light and shadow in the clouds. But there's, you know, there's not like a lot of strong blue or anything in there.
I would say it's not a blue sky.
Yeah, well, it is like right in here, but
Yeah.
it's very faint. You know, it's really, really faint. So, yeah, that's a print.
That's nice.
Yeah, but I really, you know, I really love the way he designs things. You know, even in his actual like watercolors, you know, there's a lot of thought, you know, put into where he places things. And I'm sure he edits and leaves a lot of stuff out, you know, to make it a better composition. But, you know, to be, you know, as adept as he was with using that particular medium and controlling his color and value, and designing, you know, at the same time. And, you know, in looking at his work really carefully, you know, he didn't, and I don't know this for an actual fact, but from what I've seen of his watercolor, you know, he didn't draw things out. You know, there's no pencil line in any of his work anywhere. It's all just color. And, you know, which is kind of the approach that, you know, I use. I don't put pencil line down when I'm doing a watercolor. If I need to find out where something is, I'll take like a very pale orange or a very pale yellow and just, you know, sketch it out, you know, to get my big shapes and things in, and then develop things from there. You know, but knowing what that sort of entails and looking at, you know, how well, you know, he laid things in and designed them at the same time, pretty impressive. Yeah. Definitely a really skilled artist. Now this is one of his prints. Now this one, see, the colors are a lot bolder and stuff, and, you know, it loses something in translation to me. You know, it's, you know, a little too stark. I think this is one of his watercolors. Unfortunately, it's a tiny image. But, you know, look at all the different colors in that rock. It's not gray. You know, there's purples and yellows and oranges and greens and blues, and there's everything in there. So, anyway, a little too small, too pixelated. But that would kind of give you an idea about him. And
Very nice.
yeah, I mean, if you you know, if you want to work on your skill of designing compositions and things and thinking things out, he would be a good person to look at, in particular. You know, because his stuff was really, really well planned. And he would be a good person to study. So, yeah, just my thought. Anyway, anybody got any questions, comments? about any of that?
Good stuff.
Okay. All right. Well,
Yeah.
guess what? Tomorrow, I'm going to be at the Benson Center.
Are you up for the challenge?
Yeah, I'm gonna be there. Probably gonna get there right around about 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning. Okay. And I'll be ready to go at 10 o'clock. And so we'll see you on Zoom unless you're going to be sitting in the classroom. And so tomorrow, I think the way I'm going to work this is I'm going to have them drawing from the actual objects, but I'm going to photograph the objects so that I can put them up on the screen for you guys. Because I think trying to use, like a shot, of whatever the TV or, my computer screen can pick up, I may not be able to get it big enough where you can see it. So that's why I'm going to go in early so I can light and photograph the things that we're going to be drawing so that you guys can actually see what's going on. Okay.
Good.
Okay. Anyway, we will see you all tomorrow. We hope.
All right.
And
Okay, take care, everyone.
yeah, till then, yes, take
See you
care.
tomorrow.
Have a good night. Get some
You too.
rest. And
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Have a good evening.
yep, see you
Bye
tomorrow.
now.
Bye.